Hi, my name's Isaac Shutt. I'm an estate planning attorney licensed both in Texas and in Wyoming. And today I'm going to answer a question that I get all the time. And that is, does it really matter who I use to write my will? Obviously, as an estate planning attorney, I'm going to say yes, it definitely matters who you have write your will. And the reason I say that is, we see a lot of sort of dabblers in terms of attorneys, people who maybe mostly handle divorces or some other area of law who are willing to do a will for you as a favor. Maybe it's your brother-in-law or a church friend or whatever. So you have people that don't sort of exclusively practice in the area of wills and trusts and estate planning. And so you may be tempted to have that kind of person prepare your will. And the reason I'm going to tell you that that is not a great idea is because, one, if they don't know what they're doing, just because they're not really familiar, they may agree to do it for you just because they feel awkward telling you no, and they don't want to tell you no, so they're willing to do it sort of as a favor. But what we see is that a lot of times those kind of people that really aren't used to doing a lot of wills will overcharge or just mess it up royally. And, it seems like a will is a pretty basic thing, but here's the thing. The same problem that you would have in going online to do your will is that basically if you go online to do your will, you're being your own attorney. And that's risky because if you're your own attorney and then that will doesn't get looked at by an estate planning attorney really ever, and then after you pass away, like, surprise, let's find out if this will is valid or not. Well, if you did an online will like through LegalZoom or whatever like that, that may be an unpleasant surprise for your family. And it's especially unpleasant because, they're finding out after you've passed away that maybe the will isn't valid or does something wonky. Well, the same thing happens if you hire an attorney that really doesn't do a lot of wills. They might be willing to do it and all that kind of stuff, but if they mess it up, you're never going to know because you'll have passed away and then there's just a mess for the family to deal with. So you want to deal with somebody who actually has experience, a lot of experience writing wills. And so that matters a great deal. But there are some other factors that I think you can consider when you're hiring even within estate planning attorneys. So I hope I've convinced you, get a dedicated estate planning attorney to do your will or your trust or your other estate planning documents. Not even the fact that, it's going to be higher quality. It's also typically going to be faster and less expensive if you go that route. But there are some other factors within sort of our niche practice area of estate planning of who you might consider to do your will for you. And one of those things actually is the age of that attorney. So if that attorney is really, really old, that may be something you want to take into account if you're really young, because if you're young, you may need changes over time. And it's a lot better if you can stick with the same attorney over the years. Let's say you're recently married and maybe you're going to have children. Any of those major life stages, you would probably want to update your will. But if you hired an attorney who was old as the hills, he's not going to be around when you need those updates over those years. So you want to think about getting an attorney that is sort of age appropriate for you. And by the way, that's a little bit different from the experience level of the attorney. And that's another factor you should consider is the experience level of that attorney. Just because an attorney is older does not necessarily mean that she's very experienced. There are a lot of attorneys that have had sort of a second career in the law and they did something else before, or maybe they handled a totally different area of law and then got into estate planning as a later phase in their practice. So you can't necessarily look at an attorney's age and go, oh, well, they're really experienced. But I think a factor you should consider is the level of experience. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should go with the most experienced attorney you can find, because honestly, experienced attorneys are also the most expensive. You pay for that experience. And if you're just starting out with a basic will for your family, I don't think you need the most expensive attorney in town. In fact, my law office gets a lot of referrals from other attorneys. There are a lot of estate planning attorneys that have very high retainer deposits. And so they might say, look, we're not even going to touch your estate planning or whatever unless you plunk down a minimum of $10,000. Well, for people with millions of dollars, that $10,000 is a drop in the bucket and it's not a problem. But if you need a basic will, it probably doesn't make sense to plunk down a $10,000 retainer. And for that reason, a lot of those, sort of very experienced, high net worth estate planning attorneys will refer out a lot of the cases that really warrant a more basic level of estate planning, because that would be a lot more cost effective. So again, just to roll back, you want to look at, hey, is this an attorney who actually handles estate planning and they're dedicated to that? What's their age? Does their age somewhat match what my age is? Or maybe they're a little bit younger than I am, which is also a good thing. And then also, what's their experience level? You want to look at that as well. Now, beyond that, I think you can start looking at things like reviews on the internet. Do they have good reviews? Look at their website. A lot of attorneys will kind of discuss on their website what their process is like, and sometimes even the fees. So if you want to look at, okay, is this somebody I really want to work with? Sometimes you can get a flavor for that attorney just by looking at the website and saying, okay, I really like that process. They offer a video intake meeting, and that's really attractive to me because that works with my schedule. So look at those kind of things. One thing where I would caution you a little bit is don't put too much weight on credentials. There are a lot of credentialing websites that seem very official and things like that, but honestly, they're pay to play. If that attorney is just willing to spend thousands of dollars for a logo on his website, that can give you a false impression of a high level of quality. So not all organizations, just because you see a badge from that organization, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting a higher quality attorney. It may just mean that that attorney was willing to spend some marketing dollars to get a badge on her website. So be thinking about that as well. Some credentials can mean a lot, but not always. So don't get baited into, while they have a lot of fancy looking logos on their website, they must be really good. Because a lot of those, if you're willing to pay the fee, you could be a brand new attorney right out of law school and you can pay enough money to get a lot of fancy looking badges. So that's not necessarily the end all be all. But that would be somewhat of a factor, is just kind of what credentials do they have? Do you have anything in their bio page that kind of speaks to their experience and things like that? Now, most attorneys will have a consultation meeting with you. Not all. And some, that consultation meeting will be paid, sometimes it won't. And so you can really tell from that meeting. I can tell an attorney who knows what she's talking about or what he's talking about in like 30 seconds. I mean, I can pick up the phone and talk to another estate planning attorney and go, yeah, this guy knows his stuff. And I know that clients can perceive that as well. When they call our office, clients are confident because we exude confidence, because this is the only area of law we handle. And so the client, just by even hearing from us, gets a high level of confidence, because you can just tell by a meeting with us that we know what we're doing. So that's another thing that you can do, is you're kind of looking for an attorney, is, have an interview or do a consult. Even if you have to pay a little fee to get a meeting, this is important stuff and potentially a long-term relationship for your family. Because this is an attorney that may start off with a basic will, but maybe later you're going to add a trust or move into something more sophisticated, and your family changes or your asset level changes, and you want to have somebody that you like their processes, that you feel confident in their work product and all that kind of thing. So instead of just going for the cheapest Yahoo you can find on Google, spend just even a modicum of time, just a little bit of time, looking at the website and potentially interviewing or doing a consult with that attorney. So anyway, Long story short, the question of this video was, does it really matter who you use to do your will? And the answer is absolutely it matters. You don't want to go with a dabbler, as I call them. And even within the estate planning attorneys, you should be considering a multiple of factors, including level of experience, their age, their processes, their fees, and meet them to see how confident you would be in those services over potentially a long period of time. And I hope you found this video helpful. Again, my name's Isaac Shutt. I am an estate planning attorney licensed in Texas and in Wyoming.